We're going to take a look at how to use PartNester 4 to create a file that is going to be used for surfacing our table. So we're going to start off by clicking the rectangle tool. And that rectangle tool allows us to click and hold and drag out a rectangle. I'm not worried about particular sizing yet. I just want to get a rectangle drawn on the screen. So once that is placed, we now could resize that by selecting the rectangle. Then in the shapes size for the X, I'm going to enter in 98 because we want to have this to be 2 inches bigger or 1 inch bigger all the way around. And hopefully this is going to come together for you. So we're going to enter in an X of 48 or an X of 98 and a Y of 50. Now, it might be the case where your particular machine has a longer y-axis than the x. So we would put in the opposite numbers here. The x would be 50 and the y would be 98. We have the option for this change to be the lower left corner set to absolute, and the lower left corner I want to be at a -1 in the x and also a -1 for the y. Once we have that set, I'm going to hit change. That now gives us that rectangle size to be 1 inch bigger all the way around, or offset 1 inch bigger than the material table. Our next step is to create the cutting operation. We have no cutting operation listed. So to do this, it is all based on the layer name. So I'm going to select that rectangle, come in and enter a value of surface, and that could be any name that you choose. Selecting change again now adds that to our list. So I'm going to select it, verifying that we do have a check in here because the check says yes, we want to have this operation included in the output of the G-code. We'll now come down and enter in the tool diameter that you have that you will be using for surfacing the table. The step over is how far over it steps to make its next pass. That cannot be greater than the diameter of the cutter, verifying that we have the tool number entered in for those that have tool changers, RPM, feed rate, all being set. Then we are going to the inside and selecting pocket. Once all of those changes have made, you're going to click Save as Template. That locks those changes in until we make another change. So there's no need to ever click Save Template again unless you make an edit change to one of the values that are in that operation. The final step that we have to understand is the Z level, or at what depth are we going to be cutting. So we have the option to zero to the table surface or to the top of the material. By default, PartNester 4 zeroes to the table surface. In this case, we don't want it to be the table surface. We actually want it to be the top of the material because our table surface is the material. So for cutting into our table, we want to zero to the top of the material. So to set that to be, we will go into Settings, and under the Offset and Machine Zero, we want to make sure that the Z0 is unchecked. The Z table surface is unchecked. With that being unchecked, that means that we need to zero the Z-axis to the top of our material. And again, the top of our material in this case is the table surface. So now close the settings. And I'm going to change the depth. I want to cut just a little bit in. So the depth could be anywhere from 10 to 15, sometimes 30. It depends on how cut up your table is. You have to be a little bit careful in making sure that if you go bigger than an eighth or a quarter of an inch, that surfacing bit is able to handle that. We are ramping into the material, but even with ramping with a large diameter bit, you might need to allow a longer ramp distance. With the depth now entered in, clicking change one more time is going to set the depth of that rectangle to a -1, and that -1 is going to be into the table surface again because we're zeroed to the top of the material, which again is our table surface. So once all of that is set, we will just hit calculate just so we see what we're going to be doing before we're saving any files. So the orange arrows and the lines are representing the direction of the cutter and is representing the center of the bit. Once we have all of that done, you would click Save Toolpaths and you would give it a name. And clicking Save. Now that is going to give us a folder inside of the location that we just saved it to. So if I saved it to my downloads, so inside of the downloads, I have a Surface Toolpaths file, and inside of that, we will find our G-code file that might be an NC file, a .nc, a .text, a .cnc, a .tap. It all depends on your particular machine and what the post processor is outputting. So that is the file that you would take to the machine and use to surface the table. Hopefully this helps.